intensely because, just from a small sample size, you did profoundly well. Thank you so much. I'm here as well because of my friend Edgar. We go back to Berkeley, the Poetry Review. We're editors on that. And so we've had a lot of, comradeship. And so I'm mainly here, to honor my friend, the release of this book on a very special date. So I'm going to start out with this poem, which was written expressly for today. It's called Coronation Stone. And it's based upon a stone, an Aztec stone, a Mexica stone, in the, what is it called, in the Chicago, the Art Institute. And it's a really amazing stone that is devoted to me, actually. No, it's to the coronation of Moctezuma, right? Who was the last Tlatoani of the Aztec Empire. He was the unfortunate one who had to deal with Cortez and insurrection. So it's based on that. Ellipsis is but the reflection, leopard spotted, of 5 suns. The Quetzal-crowned Tlatoani, confronted by a 3-star crowned Taurus, El Mastelejo, or fire drill, during the 7th omen. An ashen crane, its skull pierced by spindle-shaped glass, and this glass, obsidian-like, shining and triangular, phatic. Hokoyotzin, squared, the unshone isthmus, that pons asinorum bridging skin gaps. One crocodile, 15th of Janus, counter-clockwise, counting these stones, this sun-struck stone. For the ancients had texted as salutation, don't falter, or faltering, you plunge endless. One hair, age of incremental assemblages, earth and ceiling fan to shade the 4 human-skinned rosters and cool the ashen-faced organs. 7 winds fanning the plumed salamander, metallic intestinal clinking, brazen in the 4 waters of the first sun. Evaporated testes. 4 jaguars at play in the fields of shattered mirror shard. 2 suns thusly extinguished by reciprocal ascent, and the ashmen descending, and were ravaged by night-skinned pumas. So, a 3rd sun to mark the others. In a climate of 4 rains that rained fire, Tezontle grew on asymmetric plains, and Tezontle houses, Tezontle vulvae, Tezontle faces. Fevered crags sculpting the air in phalluses. By day count of the 4th sun, all had become simian, their anuses relieved by wind tunnels. Now on the nonce, a sun of movement, the north, the west, the south, the east, a tremor of collisions, the burning columnar house of Huitzlipochtli, flashing on the backs of 2-headed men riding on armored deer. Did this feathered man ken El Mastelejo erupting from their foreskins? They of the behind, the disappeared. Counting counter-clockwise, their voices surge as foam on the lip of granules. We were those in Amashak. We bore no shields nor truncheons. Nothing had we to feed on, and we ate nothing. All night it rained upon us. But the Tlatoani smiled a smile of managed ancestrality, his arms carried from each side by hierophants. That day, 1 crocodile, in our vulgar tongue, July 15th. 1 rabbit, 2 reed, in our layman's tongue, 1503. Saw no omens, nor jade, nor quetzal, nor mantles, only the wind and the jaguar tooth, and the hanging fire carpeting the maze, and the maze mashed by stones. Okay, this one is will be published in the first issue of Corazon Land Review, which is run by a nice guy. His name is Christopher Chablé, who also is connected to Digital Yulkulcab, which is a really great blog archive that publishes translations of Mayan poems by actual Mayan-speaking peoples. So this is called Notas para un homenaje a Dr. Atl. So notes toward a homage to Dr. Atl, who's a very, very famous landscape painter in the Mexican tradition. Okay, let's see. Okay, part one. Landscape. Last of the eye's conquests. Zoomorphs, flora and fauna erupted firstly in mineral moisture caverns blackened by excess of eyesight, the blues and blacks of monologic secretion. Neither on the febrile banks of the Nile, Euphrates, Ganges emerged skin wet, the beasts of nightly sweats, the flown softly, the imaginary lines of Paleolithic descent, of which man emerges, from which flesh, bone, sinew, and orb self-assemble, a tree ascendant, consciencia climactic, the colors which swarm the earth, forming river arms, sea breasts, plateaus, vegetation. Inaccessible this place in place, without the zoomorphic, the anthropomorphic, to guide you into the slime of vision, foreground, unsettling, reconstituting, background, grounding, light ground. This non-place, this genealogic thinging. Confucius, who said, sagacious, what you know because you know. And what not knowing, you know not, dislodged and unknowledged because you know not. To know a thing, a thingly thing, austere, without dimension. Landscape which brings the attention to capacity, to cumulus, to cirrus. A nephology, or what is dubiously called, speaking ingeniously concerning smoke. A white spot on the retina, which secretes a white spot on the patina. Formation of the spatial lexical. This non-thing, this morphologic placing. If an oak, the acorn. If a flint pebble, its veins. If a woman, her veins, coursing blueward into her outstretched hands, flowing autumnal and crimson into an arm of brackish sea, what is surrounding is the sense of it. So often under sunlight, beneath rain, over seas, overextended the silence of mountains, I knew. The distance which went uncrossed was the distance which went uncrossed. Part two. Unborn a painter, but born a walker of distances, eyesight, footpath, a single burning plain, labor profound and divagations. One step beyond the revolution, 1910, not 1917. He left for Europe, the peripatetic, foregoing classes in stencil and brush techniques, occupied Roman halls, listened to Ferri and Labriola, founded Art Action, a second stint in the olden world, oscillating between train steel and zone making, Sorelian syndication, anti-science, science, and positivismo, bourgeois apparatus, he hand-selected atul color. That is, apportion antiquity, Mexica antiquity, as opposed to the faux antiquity of Euro book collectors, calling it moderno. What is modern is eyesight. Walking is what's ancient. Lugones baptized him Atl, and Atl baptized himself Doctor. Formerly El Doctor Orage, Dario provided the blue marble basin, a metallic water which stunk of gasoline, meadowgrass. Transatlantic, the shaman Christ, water-infused, made of water, walks on water, crosses boatless, the Atlántico, Atlan, the water abundant, Tico, the possession, the place possessing. Hence, Nahuatl, for where great water is possessed, or the non-place possessed by water. In sum, the sea possessed. In DF, Rivera, youthful, bearded, who looked a Rossetti, and the doctor, after he'd aged and whitened, channeled Ruskin, landscape-loving, pre-coital, wrote a treatise on the language of ants, by which one learns the formation of volcanoes, of distance-spanning mountain ranges, and midwives to molten larvae and volcanoes. Mondragon and miniskirt whispering phonemes in Javier's synthesizer ear. Her breasts were Itzta viewed from Popo, the goddess view, and Atol's eyes like orbed rain on her maize field. He baptized her Nahuiolin, torrential climaxes which arrived punctually in fours as he lay upon her smooth, light-speckled ridge or slept in lawn platonic caverns, perspiring, exhausted. Part 3. Landscape. The water next time. The water. Studious as overarched day, the vaulted spires of orb, sinew, bone, and flesh, the slime whence vision rises, breaks levees, rips open deltas, deltas of limbs, limbs of crystals, the saurian's crystal face shard. Let me narrate unto you how colors shadow forth the forms, how they erupt from tangential waters, formulate molecular thrusts. Colors, primary knowledge, primary reason of indigenous origination. The organism's first sense, color sense, sense of the dissolution of all forms, of form breaking apart. A waterfall which is also a horse's tail, yet of the same movement, equine, prismatic. Ash rain, pyramids disguised by landscape, an art of disclosing human geometries and constellated beasts of prey. Cosmos and a hunger for her uncubed eyes. Dialectic flesh-making. Atl gave birth to volcanoes, lost his leg. Climbed and mounted her nonetheless. Parikutin, his progeny, and Nahuiolin, whose body river-boarded, quaking, fuming, burning, turning, unleashes on him the zoomorphic, the anthropomorphic, the panchromatic. Photographs of Popo viewed from Itzta remind him of her, of apocalypse, but also the formation of a freshwater species, the aqua-resinous taste of burning water. This is a poem from a series called Portraits of Friends. Portraits of a lover and friends, in that order. This is number 3, Retrato de un amigo, número 3. It's devoted to an old friend. Yea, whiskey drowned, like shipwrecked men who paddle away from the lighthouse toward wine-dark waves. We sought vortices in the grooves of records, the sublime silences enraptured in the white noise of unopened books. We were the solitary ones who read aloud to no one. At the back of the classroom, we bespoke orations marbled by meticulous men and carried priestly books like proud lovers gorged on the white-boned immortal dead, our thoughts configured by apparitions of order in our unlikely context. We, the self-taught Californianos, who invented our own prestige. You in your high desert heat heard the plangent call for impavid voyages, a sound of waves, a prodigal horn impassioned by a slur of wind cry. In you the stroke and counterstroke of Coltrane, of Kierkegaard, sublimest reduction. I then had awoken from suburb sleep to a monstrous dream of riptides, possessed of the image of one who read H. Crane as if it were felonious. We circumvented this curriculum and constructed our own bridge across that miasma of shopping malls and raised trucks, those obscene 6-lane roads, and where no roads were paved, the dirt and desert rocks kept us inward, hermits at a threshold fashioned from borrowed erudition. We trekked from towns to metropolises, from cities to cathedrals, and from letters to the words that were bricks in the cathedral that was a book that were pages, white pages like cloudy waves on which our brown bookish galleon steadied itself and rocked and surged. And onward, onward through speeches of women and gin, a philosophy of love that in ample fugues led us to the nightly pier, exhausted from talk and eager for dialogue with the whorish, untouched moon. We gazed up at her with tremulous, washed-out eyes, the seal's wide spindrift gaze toward paradise. Thence came the waves that came from Lord knows where, those waves of stupendous, godly inebriation, the forgetful waves of remembrance, the virgin waves of chastity, the spume waves of sex. And in that car, racing at 5 a.m., when the outer sphere still swam in the star-spotted sea, I remember, not what I remember clearly, but I remember the waves coming toward us. And you bellowed out at that passenger window in strange, righteous, sulfurous agony. Ahí vienen las olas. Ahí vienen. ¿De dónde han venido? Okay. I guess I'll read this one short. This one is called On the Occasion of Hearing a Lecture on Thoreau's Walden. Since I'm in New England, I might as well read this. Ponder you the cost of a book, or the cost of a life spent to the marrow, inscribing itself on strong back, smooth and print-impressed paper, bound for forces of a local nature, but also an unbound miniature cosmology, an economy of the book, of its paper plus its paragraphs, produced by words, produced by letters, produced by the print press of ink, which had gushed from boiled linseed oil, gum arabic, and lamp-black pigment. The carbonaceous matter of mental states suddenly materialized. The whole tree is but itself, the whole leaf he slurs soberly. But it's also black marks in a print copy standing in for I and I and I. The I that 1,811 times stands up on the black-lettered fields and white space of Walden Pond, rushes out extra vagrant through its leaf patter and rustle, and hunts among stones for loon tracks and maggot honey, who seeks the warfare of Homeric ants. Woodchuck meat clung on his gnashing teeth. The emergence of an I, a republic purged of its boundedness, of boundaries like the you in the present or the he in the past, the we that never was and us anyway here in New England. The I is who you are, the reader, and me, the I who am you too, the generous we, Walden, the rag pickers who picked up the soiled rags that littered rag-soiled streets, sold in bulk for small unctuous profit, were boiled, broken down by acids into fibrous stuff that became paper, reams of paper, in the notebook of a 2-year lunatic. A wolfman who built up and tore down a republic of the I. Emergence of an object, in short, the emergence of an economy, and I in plural.